Okay, my name is Cole, and we're back up here with a panel of founders from various developer product-focused companies. I'm just going to let them go ahead and introduce themselves, and if you have any pets, why don't you tell us what kind of pets you have?
Hey everyone, I'm John. I'm currently the founder of a company called Mux. We do performance analytics for video, so kind of like New Relic for streaming video. And I founded a company called Zencoder, which is also a developer company back in 2010. And I have a cat and 2 children.
My name is Michael Friis. The first developer product I built was called App Hopper. We were in Y Combinator in 2011. Then that didn't really pan out, so I joined Heroku for a couple of years, and now I work at Docker.
Cool. What was App Harbor? If you want to just.
It was a .NET platform as a service. So it was kind of like Heroku just for .NET apps. So we built a platform as a service on Azure running Windows and .NET.
Cool.
Yeah.
Pets?
We used to have cats and dogs growing up, but none right now.
Okay.
And I'm Ryan Spraetz. I'm one of the co-founders of Keen.io, which is a API for custom analytics. Prior to that, I worked at Salesforce.com on their developer platform, which is now called Force.com. And as pets, I have a wonderful dog named Toaster. He's a golden doodle, and on the kid front, I just recently had a kid about 6 weeks ago. So we have a little family going on.
Nice.
Congrats.
Thank you.
Great. So we're going to be covering three topics today. We're going to be talking about trying to understand or give our audience some tools to understand their customer. So who is their customer, who is my customer, and more than just like it's a developer, but more specifically, how do you get a high-resolution view of your customer? We'll also be talking about, once you've established that, how do I learn from my customer? And then finally, we'll talk about how do I know if I'm succeeding, sort of what is product market fit for a developer product. So with the Learn to Code movement, I think the developer community continues to expand and include people from diverse backgrounds. So I think today developer is somewhat of a vague term. Let's start off by asking, how did you narrow down to a specific customer for your developer-focused product? And how do you define your customer today? I'm not going to go in any particular order, so if you have any burning feelings about it and you want to jump in, feel free.
I can start. So I found customers by kind of going deep in one vertical. So both my companies have been in the video space, and I found the need firsthand. So I was a developer who needed to build hard things with video, and I didn't know anything about video, and it was really painful, and I wanted to pay someone money to do it, but what I wanted didn't exist. And so that was kind of the genesis of how I got to do it.
Cool.
Fantastic. I have like the exact opposite side of the spectrum. So for the first, call it, year we existed, we talked to basically anyone who would talk to us. So if anyone was a developer in 2012, your company probably got an email from me being like, hey, are you a developer? Do you want to talk about analytics? I want to talk about analytics. And we just kind of listened to, I have this in a Google spreadsheet somewhere, like 200 companies' analytics problems. And based on that like large body of just problem space is where we started to tease out the common themes and realized that it'd be really hard for us to address all 200 of their problems, and so a developer platform made a heck of a lot of sense. Did that answer?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think for us at App Hopper, it was in so many ways deceptively simple because we'd kind of seen, so the three of us who co-founded App Hopper were all .NET developers, and we kind of knew about how easy Heroku had made deploying web apps, and all we really wanted for ourselves was that we could still write .NET, but get the ease of deployment that Heroku gave developers. So it was kind of the classic thing where we didn't want to host and run web apps, but then we went and built a platform to do it so that other people didn't have to go to the trouble. And then we ended running people's apps for a couple of years.
Do you think, when you think about your developers, do you think that you have sort of a narrow niche of developers that tend to gravitate towards your product, or do you think that there's sort of a spectrum, or can you even identify multiple personas? Let's say like I don't know, Docker or
Yeah, so I mean, both for
Heroku.
Docker and also for Heroku, they're both so kind of generic and large platforms at this point. Like every day at Docker, I learn some crazy thing that somebody's doing with Docker that was never really anticipated. Like it's a flexible set of tools that that people use for all sorts of stuff. So I think, but then like also at Docker, it's a big company now, so different people who are focused at different stuff. So I kind of know the constituency that I'm trying to help.
Is there a way that you could define that narrower constituency?
Well, for me specifically, it's people wanting to do kind of Microsoft-related stuff with Docker, right? Like, so people who want to run Docker on Windows or want to run .NET and Docker. But I mean, we at Heroku, we had a really easy time with it. Like, if you're running Docker, is difficult because it's open source software, so we don't really know necessarily what people are using with it, other than looking at blog posts and Twitter and whatnot. With Heroku, because it's the software as a service, you can actually see exactly what people are doing with your platform, and you can go reach out to them. So, like, say I wanted to talk to people who deployed Python on Heroku, it was easy to identify that from the logs, right? And then send them a holler to see how they were doing.
I'd say for us, everyone we work with is working with video, so it's kind of a niche. But a lot of people don't know that they're going to be working with video. So there's some people who really want to specialize in a technology like that, and that's great. But there's other people who just find themselves working for something that just wants to spin up something related to video. They don't consider themselves a niche developer. So it's both people who are in a niche and people who, general developers who in the future will find themselves there.
Yeah, for us, it's much more about the types of problems that they're trying to solve, not so much a specific kind of developer or specific ecosystem or anything like that. The analytics problem is fairly ubiquitous, and so we have the benefit/challenging problem of having a very large audience that we can talk to. So picking that can be difficult.
Would you say that developers end up being the customer always, or are they sometimes the user and the customer, or the person that ultimately pays the bills is somebody different? And if that's the case, are there any challenges to that? How does that impact thinking about your product?
I think it's exactly what you said. Like, so certainly for Heroku, it was all about kind of getting developer mindshare and just getting people deploying their hobby projects on Heroku, hoping that they adopt it in their day-to-day work, and then even then, if those work projects eventually become successful, it's typically not the developer that puts in their credit card to pay for that, so it gets somebody else pays for it, right? Like IT or their manager. So it's kind of like the classic Salesforce land and expand strategy, right? Where some salesperson really needs to solve the problem of tracking their leads, so they go sign up for Salesforce. And then as the team grows, eventually somebody puts in a corporate credit card, and you have a business relationship.
Yeah, I mean, I found it. Sorry, early on in the very, very early days, we were doing a very bottoms-up developer strategy where we were just trying to get any developer to any company to start using us, much in the hobby approach. We were trying to become the tool in their tool belt, so that when they thought, oh, I have an analytics problem, I look to Keen. In those days, the developer was the user and the customer, because it was very small budgets. They could just put on a credit card, and it's very easy to go. But I mean, as we marched up market and started talking to larger companies, your strategy has to change completely, because now your developer is no longer the one paying for it; it's somebody else. They're now the champion, but not the one that writes the checks. And so your whole go-to-market, and especially your sales strategy, has to change completely.
Right. I like the story that you told about surveying tons of potential customers up front. For the rest of you, do you feel like you are a representative example of your customer base? Do you feel like a lot of empathy sort of innately with your customer? Or if not, have there been ways that you've been able to sort of just understand the day-to-day life of your customer, the context in which your customer works or makes money, and how important has that been to sort of thinking about the product?
I've spent some time in the customer's shoes, but it's kind of in the past. So a couple things. one thing I've always wanted to do that we haven't done is dog fooded our own product on something. So we could stand up a video site or something. But I'd say in lieu of that, yeah, I think empathy is such an important trait for a startup founder, and you really have to want to get into the mind of a customer, and you do that by spending a lot of time with them, talking to them, especially when things are bad. What are their challenges?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I think so. It's probably not a problem if you're early stage, right? If you're a founder, you invariably end up answering support tickets, hanging out on Stack Overflow, and just by doing that, you get to experience the pain of both the pain of the problem that people are trying to solve using your product, but also the pain of using your product if it's actually painful. But like even for now, I try to spend as much time as possible helping out on Stack Overflow, and even if I don't answer support tickets, like set up support review so that with the support team you review monthly or whatever, like what's been coming up support-wise over the past month. How do we group this stuff? What needs to change in the product to improve this? And then kind of separately, like something that's been challenging for me both at Heroku and at Docker is as like you grow, and you spoke about this also, like as you grow enterprise users, that takes effort to get into their minds and to understand what that day is like. Like for example, the kind of VPN setups or HTTP proxy setups that many developers at big enterprises have. It's my mindset is basically if I worked in that kind of setting, I would quit. But that's not really productive, and it's like you kind of have to get over that and want to help those guys be effective even with all these kind of roadblocks that they have.
Yeah. Great. So let's shift on and talk about basically something that we've touched on a little bit here, which is trying to learn from customers, trying to basically take their feedback and iterate and figuring out how to fit that into your product roadmap. I'll start off with just like a general question about customer development, which I think you can sort of also describe as like getting out of the building, or how you basically, the art of talking to customers and understanding their pain beyond, like once you've established exactly what that customer is. So the question is, do you have any customer development techniques or maybe hacks that you've used to sort of try and understand your customers? Just as an example, I was working on a product called Brace.io, and before we launched the product, we actually spent a lot of time working on a product, on just like a product video. So we didn't actually create a product, we just created this thing that looked like what we would ultimately build, and we like had a customer go, we actually went through sort of the workflow and recorded this, like screen recorded it, and iterated on the video quite a lot, talking with customers, showing them the video, kind of watching them, asking, is this cool, or like trying to get some feedback from them. And then that actually ended up being our product launch. So we ultimately shipped this video, and it got picked up by a couple of news outlets, and we got a bunch of signups for that. And then we followed up those signups with surveys, and so we kind of dug deeper into understanding what kind of people were interested enough in that product to give us, their email address. That's just one thought. I'm not sure if there's any other stories that you guys would be interested in sharing about early customer sort of communication or customer development strategies. If nothing comes to mind, then no worries.
I totally have a couple. So I personally am a very strong believer in actually talking to customers, like having an actual conversation. Face-to-face is fantastic. We talked a bit about empathy, and I think that the way you can connect with somebody when you're in person is just irreparable, or irreplicable, sorry. And so it was very much about trying to get those in-person conversations for me. And we did that through, it's actually one of the very few things that I think I've A/B tested in my entire analytics tenure, is the customer development email. When you're actually cold emailing somebody or communicating with somebody out of the blue, what are the right things to say to prompt them to actually say, yes, I want to talk with you, and I will take a half hour of my time. And early on, I think this is extremely important. And I got it boiled down to 2 sentences. Your email should literally be 2 sentences long, because I see lots of customer development emails that are like paragraphs and paragraphs about like, this is what we're doing, it's the value prop, blah, 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 blah. I can't read all that. But the 2 sentences are, the first is a credibility grab. Why are you so important to talk to? Heavybit's a great one. We're a Heavybit company. Something that says like we're a real company, we mean business. And the second one is you ask for their advice. You put them in the position of they have all the power right now. They have the upper hand in this relationship. They have all the knowledge, and you're looking to hopefully learn from them. They feel like a teacher, and that's a very empowering feeling to give them, as opposed to, hey, I want you to read about my startup, and I'm going to pitch you. And like that's not a pleasant experience for anyone. So I highly recommend that approach to getting person-to-person conversations.
Yeah, those are good. I'd also say I think you should try to fail in customer development. So if you can't get people to talk to you, you shouldn't move past customer development and say, it's not working. You should realize probably something's wrong. And when you have conversations with people, don't try to pitch them. Tell them what you're doing, and like try to pry from them why it's not going to work, or why they won't use it, or why they don't like it. And then like your bar that you need to cross, I think, is enthusiasm. It's not just a polite, okay, cool, yeah, I would try it. It's, that's great, and I can't wait till you build it.
So another question is that there are often very vocal early adopters, like people that you just can't get to stop talking. How do you know who you should listen to, or how do you find the signal in the noise when you're initially talking with customers?
Yeah, I think it's part of what you said, right? Like the ones who are willing to pay, that's a really good signal. Like I remember probably the kind of the blog post that we wrote at App Hopper that I feel worst about was the one where because we did another thing that you recommended against, which is we launched completely free, and then we introduced a pricing model later on. And so that blog post announcing that pricing model was just, the comments were not great, right? Because there were a bunch of people who had now been conditioned to getting something for free, and they were really vocal about it. But ultimately, like we just had to power through that, and we could like argue, okay, if they're so belligerent about getting this stuff for free, then they might not be that important for the success of the company ultimately. Yeah.
I think you also try to look behind the answers. So if someone says, I want feature X, try to figure out why. And look for, as you talk to multiple people, look for the commonalities and the reasons. And don't just take requests from users, but understand their world, the problems they're trying to solve. Draw a box around what you're actually doing. And if there's something outside of it, tell them, go use this other product for that. But here's what we're doing.
Cool. And then, not all feedback is spontaneous. Are there any ways that you've been able to encourage or solicit feedback? I think we've been talking about this a bit, but if anything specific that you've done to really incentivize your developers and customers to connect with you and talk with you.
I mean, we just made it like as painless as possible to get in touch with us. I think that's important. So all social media channels need to be monitored and be very open. The more human your brand is, the more likely are people to engage with you. And I think that goes a long way. It's an often overlooked piece.
I think early on, do things that don't scale, like invite your customers to your Slack channel and really get to know them well. Go visit them every 2 weeks, just even if you have nothing to talk about, just find out how they're doing and what they're using. And then try to scale that as you get bigger. Eventually, you can't do all that with everyone, but
I have a small story to tell. So when we were first doing Backlift, I actually I had all my customers' emails, and then I just created this like tool that basically automatically put drafts into my Google mailbox, and then I just like sent them. So they were just getting personal emails from me. I just kind of automated my outbox a little bit.
Yeah, I definitely also have a mail merge script that runs. It's not that hard to set up. Like you can run against the Google SMTP endpoint and just do like a mail merge to make it more personal.
That's interesting that you're doing that at a company the scale of Docker. Or was this?
No, it was actually it was a great guy at Heroku called Craig Kirstians. He did it first. Like the problem is when you go to that size, there's a marketing department that has some sort of email system and then actually getting to have a mail merge send to 50 people is going to take you a week and a lot of coordination. So it's easier to write the tool, I feel. And it, like, you just get out of the problem of ending in people's spam boxes because it comes from your email.
Yeah, yeah. All right, last question on learning from customers. How do you take that feedback? Do you have any systems for sort of integrating that into your roadmap? Any thinking about how you prioritize feedback and get into your roadmap? I think you kind of touched on that with kind of drawing a box around your product. Any other thoughts on this topic?
Yeah, this like cliche, this like user voice stuff. We had that at AppHopper. I thought that was pretty successful.
Sorry, what's the user voice stuff?
Like just have a site where people can upvote ideas, submit and upvote ideas, basically.
Ah, interesting.
At Docker, we run, Docker's kind of, because most of the software is open source, so you can just go look at issues for the open source software. And actually, even for some of the closed source enterprise products, we have public issue trackers. So because people using Docker are so used to GitHub, they'll go create an issue, and then you can kind of keep track of the upvotes and comments on issues, and that's like a reasonable proxy for how important a particular problem is.
So at the smaller size, I actually strongly advocate for not writing anything down. You'll have, ideally you're having a ton of conversations, and the things that people say the most will fester in your brain, and it'll like self-categorize. And you'll ideally walk away with like the 2 or 3 big things that you need to focus on, as opposed to the list of 50 things that you could potentially focus on. So it's maybe a little counterintuitive to be like, yeah, people are going to ask you for things, and then kind of ignore it. But your brain will eventually figure it out while you're sleeping, and you'll wake up in the morning and be like, yes, this is the important thing that everyone's actually been talking about. But maybe that was unique to myself.
Cool. I'm going to move on now to trying to tease out how do you know if your company is succeeding? And I mean, there's this idea of product market fit. I think that it's a nebulous thing. A lot of people talk about it. I don't think everyone understands what that means. Do you guys have a definition in mind for product market fit? How do you define it, and how do you think about it?
I have a brief story about when I think we found it. We got a customer that we had never spoken to, paid us on a weekend. And I was like, whoa, how'd that happen? It's like Sunday afternoon. Or like, how did we get a customer on Sunday afternoon and we've never spoken to them before? And that's when I was like, okay, like maybe this has legs.
Yeah, I don't know a great definition, but I definitely see it as something where your product is validated by arm's length sales. So if you get your product in front of your target customer, a reasonable percentage of those people will buy and will be happy with it.
Cool. All right. Well, let's say that you're not already making $1 million in ARR. What other indicators can you look at to kind of like have a sense of whether you're on the right track? Can you like think of like sort of an atomic unit of success, something like that? I don't know. I'm just throwing ideas out, but.
Let's see, pre-million.
Yeah, I mean,
It's like hard to think back.
yeah.
I mean, yeah, we didn't have like concrete. It was really, we didn't have a lot of goals at that point, really. Like, we think we had just finally figured out, like, oh yeah, we have to try to make money. So like, let's try to figure that out. And then we set arbitrary sales goals for ourselves, and we ran as hard as we could at them, and we hit them. Yeah, it's very Wild West in those days. Like, you know, whatever you got to do to get a job done.
I think money is a good one, and like I think you can look at good money and bad money. So if you make a lot of money, but it's like on something that's not your core vision, that doesn't really count. But money or customer count that is what you want to be doing long term is, I think it's hard to find a better validator than that.
Bad.
Yeah, month-over-month customer growth and dollar growth it's got to be going the right direction. It should be at that stage. You should still be like hockey sticking. If your revenue is going like this at sub-million, then something maybe isn't right.
Okay. I haven't heard bad money before. Do you think that's always an indicator that maybe that means you're doing the wrong, you're building the wrong product?
Yeah, I mean, I think money's money, and money helps you not die. But some money hockey sticks, and some money doesn't. And some money gets you to what's your next milestone you want to get to, and what's 3 milestones down the road. So, some of it,
Right.
yeah.
Would you
Cool.
classify services revenue as bad money?
Yeah, probably. I think services. I mean, you can build a hockey stick company with a services component, but if that's not what you're trying to do and you're just using services to bootstrap, that's great and bootstrap away. But it doesn't give you the same validation that your recurring product.
And
revenue
we're
does.
talking about like almost like consulting, that kind of money.
Yeah, it could be consulting. Could be building something that's not your core.
Right,
So
right.
this is your core business, and someone asks you to build this over here, so you build it for them.
Right.
Yeah.
Cool. Last question, actually the last question of the night, is have you ever pivoted, and how do you know if maybe you need to pivot? If nobody's pivoted, that's going to be a deflating final question.
No, for app hopper, we just
Yeah. You just cut it.
Yeah.
All right. That's the pivot.
Not really. Sorry.
I mean, like on week 2 of the company, we totally pivoted from what we were going to do to something else, and I don't even want to discuss the first idea because it's so terrible. But you know when to pivot because everyone looks at you like, what? When you tell them what you're trying to do.
Yeah.
And you said you're trying to get to enthusiasm, and if you're not seeing like that, it does not count to talk to friends and family. You have to talk to strangers to look for that enthusiasm, and if it's not there, it's a pretty good sign.